The Arizona Cardinals have more bulletin board motivation material for 2022. This time, the NFL's top 100 list.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here. It's Monday. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. On the heels of a pretty good win by the Arizona Cardinals against the Bengals in week 1 of the preseason, we saw some highs, we saw some not so greats, and we saw everything in between. Last night, in kind of like a news dumpy kind of fashion, the NFL drops the first 50 of their top 100 list for 2022, voted on by the players, about the players. And the Cardinals had 3 guys in the top 50, or in the bottom 50, I should say. And only one of those rankings were on par. The other 2 were kind of slaps in the face. It's going to be interesting to see what pans out in 2022 as it pertains to the ranking for 2 specific players. I'll talk about it. I mean, this show is going to be I'm not exactly happy today with the NFL 51 to 100 list. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to highlight the 3 players that were ranked 51 through 100 on the NFL top 100 list going into this 2022 season. Now, these rankings are kind of skewed because they were based on last year's performance and not really projecting this year's performance. And it's the list culmination of list season that's been going on for the last, 6 weeks or so. This is like the list that pisses people off and excites people, whatever. This has the most carte blanche, I think, because it's from the players. And unfortunately, the Arizona Cardinals don't get that much national media pub. Teams on the East Coast don't really think much of the Cardinals. And there's 3 players. I'm going to give their ranking, and I'm going to give kind of a look back into last season and kind of what's expected of them this season. And this is going to be a fun podcast. So at number 80, James Conner came in on the 2022 NFL Top 100 list. Like, this is about right. James Conner had an incredible touchdown year last year. He had a lot of yards. He was the focal point of the offense for the second half of the season after DeAndre Hopkins went down. Okay? He was the most important skill position player on offense, not named Kyler Murray. And it was a little troubling down the stretch when they focused on him too much, got hobbled. Chase Edmonds was out. They never really played together at a top-tier level, Chase Edmonds and James Conner, where it would have been nice if they were able to just split the load week 1 through week 17, but it tipped the scale, especially inside, the 10-yard line. James Conner, with the obvious Cliff Kingsbury flair attached to it, with play-action bootlegs whatsoever, what have you. But 80 is about right. 80 is about right. The fact that he made the list is cool, but for him, it's not. It's like, who cares? He was a non-story for the last couple seasons, injury, etc. He's one of the better stories in the history of the NFL. Overcoming cancer and he's an absolute specimen, great teammate. He's an honorary Arizona Cardinal. So there's DJ Humphries is an Arizona Cardinal. Budda Baker is an Arizona Cardinal. That's there aren't a whole lot on the roster. Byron Murphy's an Arizona Cardinal. We'll see what happens through this year. Budda Baker got his second contract. DJ Humphries got his second contract. Jalen Thompson will most likely get his second contract. But all in all, there aren't a whole lot of Arizona Cardinals on this roster, if that makes sense. And I think that what James Conner did last year and then getting a second contract, well-deserved, a lot of this is going to be back pay. People are comparing this to the David Johnson contract. I think he's a year younger than what David Johnson was when he got the contract. Plus, I mean, he made $1.3 million last year, and he was a Pro Bowler. James Conner was. So the fact that he came in at 80, that's about right. Okay, this is the one that's the most palatable of the three that I'm going to discuss today. What does 2022 look like for him? What I hope is a decrease in numbers. And I'm going to tell you why. If he scores 15 touchdowns, that cool. But like, you want to see more run by committee for the Arizona Cardinals, which means that either Darrell Williams and or Eno Benjamin will pop, which means that they will be able to get and be trusted with more of the percentage of touches, because at this point, James Conner is the only proven running back in the backfield. Darrell Williams has been, and I, even though he hasn't been a huge name coming out of camp, this is his first year in this offense, okay? And we've seen him with RB1 carries. We've seen him produce on one of the better offenses we've seen in recent memory in the Kansas City Chiefs. When Clyde Edwards-Helaire goes out, when Damian Williams goes out, he's the first guy off the bench. And I know that the Gore kid, who's incredible out there as a third back for them in Kansas City, flashed last year also. But Darrell Williams has proven that meaningful carries is something that he can excel in. We haven't seen that from Eno Benjamin. He hasn't gotten the reps. He was, I guess this was maybe a Chase Edmonds blocker, and he hasn't, been able to show it yet. But if James Conner usage can go down just a little bit, but be as efficient when he touches the ball, that's the sweet spot, because that's the recipe for him being able to play all 17 games this year and into the playoffs, you hope. That's what you want. The Cardinals need to avoid a situation, and this is obviously barring injury and anything of the sort, where you rely on one offensive player not named Kyler Murray to carry the load. That in no way should be an option this year. No way. Hollywood Brown, Zach Ertz, AJ Green, Rondale Moore, James Conner, Darrell Williams, Eno Benjamin, in no way, DeAndre Hopkins, remember him? There in no way, shape, or form should be one player on the offensive side of the ball that is relied upon for the offense to go. And that's what we saw last year with James Conner. We're hoping there won't be a repeat performance this year. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Next up, Budda Baker. This is a joke, but it's expected at this point. Where he ranked, where he was last year, and what his 2022 is going to look like and will need to look like. All next, Locked On Cardinals. First, BetterHelp. Okay? I've been talking about BetterHelp now for a little while. They've been on board with us for a bit. I've been very candid. I've gone to therapy throughout my life. There have been large chunks of when I haven't, but it's sometimes difficult to find a therapist, to find somebody that you click with, and to find somebody that's, available for you. Life's full of twists and turns. It's important to show up for yourself when, through all of it. Okay? BetterHelp Online Therapy will help you assess your needs and can match you with your own licensed professional therapist in less than 48 hours. I've gone through therapists. I'm like, nope, I don't know. It just doesn't mix. It just doesn't mix. It just doesn't mix. And then you find somebody, you're like, oh, sweet. BetterHelp helps you with that. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional therapy done securely online, available to people worldwide. You can log into your account anytime and send a message to your therapist. You can schedule weekly video or phone sessions so you don't have to be on camera if you don't want to. And getting therapy every week is as easy as a few clicks on your laptop or phone. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they're recruiting additional therapists in all 50 states. And they have a special offer for my listeners here, Locked On Cardinals. Get 10% off your first month at BetterHelp.com/lockedon. That's 10% off your first month of online therapy at BetterHelp.com/lockedon. I mean, so I saw the NFL 100 drop last night, the 51 to 100, and I was like, what the hell are we doing here? Ladies and gentlemen, what are we doing here? What I'm doing here is I'm the host of Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy, follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn the notifications on so you know whenever the next video is up. It's going to be a lot of great stuff as we go into the regular season and through the regular season, I'll be doing a halftime show every halftime of every game from now through week 18. Join me. Had a fun one in Cincinnati against the Cincinnati Bengals at halftime. Bring your questions, bring your comments. I'll interact. It's the fun stuff where I get to interact with you one-on-one. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. Budda Baker came in after the 2020 season at number 19. Budda Baker, after the 2021 season, came in at number 67 on the NFL's top 100 list. There's a couple things that came into play here. One, I truly believe that this has to do with the downfall of the second half of the season. And I think it has more to do with Kyler Murray that we're going to talk about in the third segment. But Budda Baker dropping to 67, ain't no way that he's only the 67th best player in the NFL. It's just not possible. And I think it's 100% possible that he's ranked this way because he gets no respect across national media. He doesn't. With players that are interviewed and asked about him, players love him. And players fear him, but the majority of those players are in the NFC West. George Kittle, Cooper Kupp were both interviewed as saying, you have to have a game plan for Budda Baker. And I think part of the reason for the downfall last year with his performance and his ranking that's obviously coming out now at 67 is the defense wasn't as good last year as it was in 2020. And if other players are doing their job, Budda Baker gets to excel at his. If other players aren't necessarily doing their job to the level that's necessary, Budda Baker needs to cover for other players, which makes him not be able to do his specific job properly because he's doing other people's jobs for them in some capacity. Pass rush went downhill the second half of the season, which in turn made the cornerback room look weaker the second half of the season, which tertiarily, I'm making that word up, Budda Baker wasn't able to perform to his best potential from the safety position, even though it's kind of, what is his job? He's one of those guys where he's at the line of scrimmage, he's over the top, he's everywhere in between. Like that's what makes Budda Baker great. But if you need to cover for a weakness on the defense, he's not able to do his job excellently, specifically in the safety room. And that, I think, is the drop for 19 to 67, even though that's pretty steep, regardless of if he did take a little bit of a step back performance-wise last year. Okay. And performance-wise, from the true safety position that he plays. What does 2022 need to look like for Budda Baker? This needs to be his best year yet. And I don't think that's, by necessity, not because, you need to earn your paycheck. You need to earn your paycheck, number 3. That's not it. Budda Baker's, like the contract that he got, even though he was the highest paid safety when he got it, and I tell this story, one of my best friends who's a huge football fan, he texts me, he goes, "Who's Budda Baker?" Like that's where he was. He is no longer a who's Budda Baker entity in the NFL. And he needs to have his best year ever to keep this defense afloat. Because what we've seen, they've made a couple cuts, gutting down to 85 tomorrow. Like Kinsey Kiki, gone. He was supposed to be the interior defensive lineman, came over from Green Bay. Supposed to be a guy to bolster the interior of this defensive line, run stoppers, etc. Add a little veteran leadership. Gone. So it's very clear what Steve Keim is doing on defense. Everybody he drafted, young players, this is going to be the defense. And without the safety net of veteran players like the Cardinals have had over the last couple of years, Budda Baker needs to be that safety net pretty much for the other 10 players on the defensive side of the ball. That's his job now. That's his job now. And the tough part about this is we don't know what it's going to look like. We know the Vance Joseph has a couple strengths. Okay. He was known as the DB guy in Miami. It's what got him the gig in Denver. He was like, he's the DB guy. And what he's done for the pass rush for the Arizona Cardinals since he's come here has been wizard-like. He's been a magician. Chandler Jones goes out, the pass rush gets better. He was interviewed. I can't remember if it was played at halftime. It was played at some point in the Cincinnati Bengals game. Like he was interviewed. It was a clip from a previous interview where he's like, with Chandler not returning, it allows us to have a pass rush by team, pass rush by committee. And it sounds like this is not that. I didn't text VJ and ask him this, but it seems like it's like, cool, Chandler's gone. Now we can giddy up here. And I don't know if that's, the head coach positive spin on losing a perennial Pro Bowler who came in at 62. Chandler Jones did. For people to think he dipped last year, Chandler Jones ranked 62 according to the players, top 100. Budda Baker is just going to have to be I hate it. I hate myself. I hate everybody. I hate myself. It's the Swiss Army knife of this defense. Come on. It's super lazy, but that cliche, the Swiss Army knife. But he's going to have to be the putty. He's going to have to be the Band-Aids. He's going to have to be the crazy glue for this defense for 2022. He's going to have to be the everything guy because there is no safety net in the cornerback room, linebacking core, aside from Marcus Golden, and the front, aside from J.J. Watt. So, Budda Baker, you hope, the Cardinals had a good season in 2022 if Budda Baker's in the top 25 again next season when this list comes out. Because not only does that mean that the Cardinals won, that means that the defense excelled, and that means that Budda Baker was the integral part of it and probably the leader of the pack like we expect him to be at this point. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Save the best for last. Kyler Murray comes in at 57. What a joke. We'll talk about it next. BetOnline.net, fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. If you told me, Kyler, top 50 or bottom 50, I would think that the line that I'm making up right now would be minus 1,000 for Kyler to be in the top 50. But nope. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They got you covered, man. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. If you want to go to one of the platforms and leave a review, cool. Apple, Google Play, whatever. I'm around. I will be with you from here through the entirety of the 2022 season. Let's have some fun. Hopefully we'll be watching some winning football. James Conner, 80th on the NFL Top 100 list. Budda Baker, 67th on the NFL Top 100 list. And Kyler Murray, K1, number 1 in your hearts, number 57 on the NFL Top 100 list. Now, here's the thing. I get it. I don't, but I get it. If Kyler Murray was 6'4", 220, and I'm not just let me finish. If he was a prototypical sized quarterback, I think he would be higher. But what we've seen the second half of the last 2 seasons was a younger quarterback who has a different skill set than what a traditional quarterback skill set is, falter down the stretch. And this is players about players. So this isn't coaches. This isn't anything else. This is players about players. And I feel like he would be higher if it was just a younger quarterback struggling. But this is more of people don't believe in Kyler Murray because of his stature. And I think that's a joke. And I feel like his precipitous decline in the rankings from last year to this year, I get it, because They were 10-2. He's the quarterback. He's going to drop. Like, if they would have won that playoff game, this is different. If they would have showed up in that playoff game, if they would have been able to clinch a division on their own and not had Sean McVay have to do it, it would have been different. But it wasn't, so this is where we are. Is he better than the 57th ranked player in the NFL? Of course he is. But this is just how players across the NFL view the Arizona Cardinals. And they're not wrong with what we saw the last half of last season. They're not. Things just can't change because you want them to. Things just can't change because, like, yeah, but what about the first half? It's all about December, January, playoffs, how you perform then. People don't remember the first half of seasons because it doesn't matter except for people potentially getting out to a 20-mile race lead in the marathon and just have to make it across the finish line, which is exactly what the Cardinals season was last year. So the growth, the addition of the offensive players on offense, addition of players on offense this offseason, Rodney Hudson coming back, like, I'm guessing that Kyler Murray will be in the top 25 next year, just like Budda Baker. If you find Kyler Murray and Budda Baker in the top 25 of this list before the 2023 season starts, the Cardinals had a magical season like people are expecting. And it'll be pretty damn sweet on August 15th, 2023, when I'm talking about this as this is why they rose, because they won this, this, and this, won a playoff game, were close to an NFC Championship appearance. That's what you hope to see. If Budda Baker and Kyler Murray in the top 25 of this list next year, the Cardinals had a magical 22. Here's to hoping for it. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. I'll talk to you tomorrow.